Okay, so how are you doing, Alex?
I am okay.
You okay?
Yes.
Okay. And okay, yesterday we studied all these things, and I wanted to just add a little bit of okay, let me see. So here, this kind of price relationship among those four crops, and they are quite, correlated with each other. So you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And by the way, this is the data, daily price movements of oil, rice, wheat, corn, and soybeans in the United States. This is daily price. So, this is an important thing. Oh, excuse me. And particularly, oh, excuse me. I mentioned this July 3rd, which was the highest. And this was a crude oil, the $145, And at that time, this is a soybean price. And then this is the rice price. And this is the corn. And this is wheat. And by the way, you may find that, the rice is lower prices than the soybeans, But the, here on the right-hand side, we have rice and the corn. And the rice is ton per dollar per ton. And then the corn is just cents per bushel, okay? So anyway, just here, what I want to mention is even the daily price movements still the same, they are correlated. Look at this area, they're all going up along with the crude oil and coming down, way up and then coming down sharply. Everything is coming down, okay? And then again, going up a little bit, but sometimes the trend can be different because so much production in corn, for example, but the daily movement, up and down things is quite correlated. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
The up and down movement is quite, similar. So this kind of correlations existing along with the crude oil prices. So anyway, I want you to know the relationship between grains and crude oil, okay? And this is the situation that the demand situation change over time. Well, over time means the daily it changes, and the supply is already set once they harvest, for example, in the United States, for corn, for example, they harvest in September, you know, August, September, and October, in the fall anyway. You know, in the South, it's still warm, so they harvest sometime in August. But anyway, and then once they harvest, the supply is set, but demand curve changes, you know, along with the crude oil prices. So the price just changed like that really fast. And if, you know, this is the 3-4 years in the long run, then the prices would be smaller. But in the short run, you know, just like daily price movement, it is really quick, and then the very big movements along with the oil prices, because there's no change in supply. So anyway, this is a supply curve and demand curve situation, and I just want to know that there's a difference in the short run, this one, short run, and then in the long run situation. Okay. And then this is a part of review with the different slides, and competitiveness and the substitute among the crops. Competitiveness, you know, competing crops, you know, the for example, the soybean, rice, and corn, they are produced at the same time. You know, winter, during the winter, the wheat is produced. You know, of course, wheat is harvested in the springtime, but it goes through from the fall through winter, and then harvested in the springtime. Do you know wheat?
Yes.
Some students don't know when they, you know, start growing. But in the case of the rice, maybe in your countries, maybe different. In the tropical area, you know, they can grow the rice 3 times per year, sometimes 4 times even. But in Japan, have you seen the rice growing?
Yes, I have seen.
In the field. When did they plant it? When did they plant the rice?
Mostly toward in some places have already planted, but here maybe toward the end of the month.
Huh?
Maybe. Some places they have started planting now. Rice.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And then harvest?
Harvest is in October, November.
Yeah, October, November. You're right. Okay. That's the same for corn. And we don't have much corn in Japan, but the same for corn, and also same for the soybeans. Okay. So that's why the farmers, this not particularly so in Japan, but you know, between rice and soybeans, they just try to choose which is more profitable. But in the United States, they choose so much, you know, so hard. They got the you know, even cotton comes in, you know, the same. And also in the case of wheat, they grow for such a long time. So wheat also take over for the whole 1 year for the land. Okay, so they try to estimate which is most profitable, you know, to grow. So in here, in the production side, and they just compete with each other. Okay, so with the relatively speaking low price crop would not be grown much, right? And then the high price crop would be grown more. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, it's getting balanced. Okay. And then, okay, after the production, it goes to the consumption, you know. Consumption is food, feeding, and the bioenergy, right? Particularly for corn and soybeans, the bioenergy, and the rice and the wheat are not being used for bioenergy, but the feeding and the food. Rice is particularly for food, you know, not much feeding, very, very tiny. In the case of wheat, some more for feeding, but a lot more for food, okay? So they balance. Again, if the bioenergy, you know, they need more bioenergy and the relatively good price for the bioenergy, then this one, but the food and then feeding, and they all balanced because, you know, they choose, they're not completely completely take it over, but even a little bit of you know, small amount, but that makes a big impact on the prices. Okay, so in the case of food, so all these things, you know, the people eat fruits and then corn, including livestock, and then feeding, they use corn and some wheat, some rice, mainly soybean meal, and then and corn, and then, you know, this makes the livestock, and then it goes into the human consumption, right?
Yeah.
And then energy, we don't use rice wheat much, but we use lots of soybeans, sugar cane, palm oil, and corn, and then they're then used for cars and the, you know, trucks and automobiles anyway, right? So these are well balanced, and if this one is more profitable, then the supply goes more of this one from here, right? You know, relatively more, you know, more than the past, if the this is more profitable. So when the oil prices were so high, then it got more profitable. So they used a lot for bioenergy. You know, it's still a lot because the prices are quite high. Okay. Anyway, so this produced products of grains and other things, you know, are balanced among these depending upon their prices. Are you okay?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, good. So, you know, these prices are all related with each other. And then this one too, né? Because of such things, they're all connected with each other. They're all substitutes. Even among this one, substitutes with each other, right? And among this one, each of them substitutes with each other. If the rice price is so high, then they don't use rice, and then they use other things. If soybeans are much higher, then for this bioenergy things, wouldn't use soybeans much. Instead, they use corn. You know, if the rice price is so low, they may start using rice for bioenergy more. Things like that. Okay, so they're all related. Okay, so the production, consumption sides both adjust themselves for greater demand, you know, so adjust themselves. So somewhat the prices balanced, and they're related with each other. So that's why this move together. Okay, so for the price transmission things, okay, the price is transmitted, you know, almost instantly nowadays in the global area. Okay, so but among the free trade countries, so with the electric data in the cities, you know, and this is internationally. So you have a Chicago Board of Trade, Chicago prices. You know that, you heard that, right?
Yes.
And then you heard the Rotterdam in Europe, Holland, Rotterdam prices. And maybe somewhere other big market cities, you know, those prices are all the same, basically the same, move up and down the same, you know. Soybean in Chicago price, soybean in Rotterdam today and tomorrow, you know, yesterday, basically the same, moving up and down, same. Okay, that's the situation. And because electric data, they exchange information, you know, immediately. And you know, stock markets, you know, stock markets for the companies, and once the stock market just dropped in the United States, everywhere in the world dropped, even in Japan and then Hong Kong, the Europe, all dropped. You know, the same thing. Okay, and even in the area without electricity, they have radio, right? They have radio in the rural areas. Yeah? In this case, you know, the China, for example, China is really now quite well advanced by now, although per capita income is rather low, still low, but as a whole big country, more than 1 billion, 1.3 billion people live there. And like 1990, I visited there, and their situation was very bad in comparison to now. And I visited in the rural area, you know, very remote area, and they didn't have electricity. So, you know, what the farmers there was using was the radio machine, and then they are receiving those news information, market information. So they know the current prices. Yeah? So if the merchants just come and then try to sell, and farmers already know about the market prices. Okay, so then they negotiate. Of course, there's a transportation cost there, so they have to you know, reduce the price that much because of the transportation. Yeah, but besides that, the price is the same. You know, this difference is the transportation cost. Okay, and then besides that, if the city price go up, then the rural price go up too. You know? Go up and down together. Okay, that's the situation, right? Maybe in your country too, the farmers in the rural area, they're always listening to the radio and then get the market news, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you cannot just you know, fool the farmers. They're clever. Yeah. So that's the situation. And even in the you know, in the case the IFPRI, do you know IFPRI? International Food Policy Research Institute in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
They did the interesting study in Bangladesh in 1980s, even 1980s, and they found that kind of situation. You know, in the rural area, producers still get the news, market information. So there is no exploitation or there is no, making them full, and then the intermediate person, middleman, can make money out of the expenses of the producers in the rural area. No, there is no such things. So nowadays, they have even more information nowadays. Okay. So on the other hand, this is among the free trade countries. And among the non-free trade countries, then that's a different story, because they, politically insulate the prices to protect the domestic producers or to protect the domestic consumers. To protect the domestic producers, this is, when the domestic the production cost is so high, and their prices much higher than international price. Okay. Can you tell me any cases like that? For example, in Japan, which crop was like that?
Rice, no?
Exactly, rice.
Yeah.
You're right. Rice is like that. Rice is so expensive, much more expensive than international prices. Okay, because the production cost is so high in Japan, and farmers are politically very strong, so they claim that they should be protected. So we import a little bit. We import maybe only 10%, but that is limited, no more. Okay, so that is very sensitive in Japan. Yeah, very sensitive politically. So if they open up the rice market completely, then Mr. Abe just lose the election next time.
What will happen? Like they have already signed some agreement with the European
countries,
like a free trade. What will happen to the rice farmers in the future?
But that is except for rice.
Except for rice?
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Rice is not included. So now the Trump wants to, export more agriculture products to Japan. Maybe some more for rice, because the United States produces rice. A little bit more, but not a whole lot. And then other beef and what else from the United States. Basically, it's almost free trade, except for rice and some wheat and some dairy products are limited, but we import a lot of things. But the rice is quite limited. So that is policy, politics, and so that kind of things. Then the Chicago price go up, Japanese price remain the same, or sometimes come down because of too much production, or the Chicago price come down, but the domestic Japanese price still remained up, things like that. Okay. So I don't like this one any much about this protecting domestic producers. They never get become efficient. So I'm against this kind of policy. And for the protecting domestic consumers, there are some cases, not much, but there are some cases because producers are so poor, and then so if they export much, then domestic prices go up. right?
Yeah.
So the government doesn't want that. So try to protect consumers, and so tell the those merchants not to export. If you export, they give you some fines, and so in this kind of case, export tax may be imposed. If they export, then they need to pay tax to this domestic government. Have you seen any case for the export tax? No.
No.
It's a little bit unusual, but they exist. In Thailand, they used to have the export tax for rice export, and also rice export from Argentina. They used to have, but not nowadays. They need more, the hard currencies. So they try to export as much as possible. Oh, in the case of India, they try not to export rice, until just recently, a few years ago. But now they're exporting a lot.
Yes.
Yes, and then actually India is now the largest rice exporter, all of a sudden, because it's such a huge country. So China can become a large rice exporter, but they are that country that does not export either.
But the problem with Chinese, there was an history. They exported some plastic rice to Nigeria. Is it 2017 or 16 like that?
Really?
Yeah, when people discovered the rice was not, it was like the plastic rice.
So same kind of things happened back in 1994. 1993, we had a very serious crop failure for rice. And the next year we imported a lot, and imported from China as well. And then they put some pieces of glasses. That was even more dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah. But anyway, that kind of things can happen. So yeah, I really looking for more free trade, and really our domestic farmers have to compete with the international producers. Okay, so price transmission, there are many papers about this one for rice and the international prices and domestic prices for African countries. What's the relationship between the two? Yes, some of them are related, some of them are not really related, and then why? What's the policy there? That kind of things, and then this policy is good or bad. Particularly for corn, the international corn prices, and then domestic prices in Africa. So I think it's going to be very interesting, right? But also, I just thought about this, price relationship transmission among these crops, internationally, and people usually they do the prices between outside price and domestic price, for the same crop, for the case of corn or for the case of soybeans. But here, you can just check among the crops. I think that's going to be interesting. I don't know if I see that kind of papers. Not that I know of. I have not checked much, but in the past, I have not come across with such paper. Okay. So far, any questions?
Like the price of price transmission in Africa, because we don't have like an organized system of market. and the corn which are produced in Africa is a white corn, not the yellow corn, because the yellow corn is the one which is in the international market.
Right.
Yeah, so most of the African country produce the white corn.
Yes.
So how will the price be transmitted? Because like it is not in the international market, the white corn.
Right. I think that's an interesting question. Interesting question. However, I think there is some relationship between the two. Some. I don't say completely, but some. And also, you can see those price relationship among the countries, among the countries, and that's going to be a good studies. And I understand the white corn is very important for food. Huh?
Yes.
So they try to protect their own food in the African countries, but there are many ways to survey those price relationship, even for the white corn. By the way, rice, in the case of rice, there are two types, mainly. Two types, the Japonica rice and the Indica rice.
Yes.
The Japanese eat which? Japanese people eat
Japonica. Huh?
Japonica,
Yes.
rice. And then Japanese people don't like Indica.
Indica, yes.
And
yes.
In the tropical area, they eat Indica rice.
Yeah, Indica.
They don't like Japonica rice,
Yeah, because Japonica is like a plastic. When once you cook it, touch each other. Sticky, yes.
Yes.
But the Indica is not sticky. Yes,
right.
You can
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the Japanese restaurants booming all over the world, and maybe in your country, and there are some Japanese restaurants, they use this Japonica rice, very sticky rice, rather sticky rice. Okay?
Yeah.
And but relatively speaking, it's a very tiny amount, relative to the whole consumption of indica rice.
Yeah.
In tropical area, and even in European countries, they prefer indica rice. But anyway, but still, those two rice, somewhat the prices are similar for the movement per se. Yes. So I think for the white corn and the yellow corn, maybe there is some relationship.
Yeah.
Of course, the white corn is more expensive than yellow corn. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is so, because it depends on how the production, because most of the people in Africa produce the white one.
Yeah.
There are few who produce yellow corn, because the produce from the white is much more than yellow corn.
I see. Yeah. By the way, there is a funny story that I experienced in Africa, in Tanzania. And I stayed at the hotel, and in the morning, I tried to eat breakfast, and then they asked me what I wanted to eat. So I said the fried egg. And then how many? So they said 2. I said 2. So they brought the 2 fried eggs, and then I checked. Then there are no egg yolk. They're all white. So, oh no, there are no yolk in here in these eggs. And then I started eating anyway. Then I tasted some yolk taste, in the egg. And then all of a sudden I checked it, and then yolk was white.
Yeah, those layers, most because those some of the layer produce in there, not the yellow yolk. It is white mostly. Yeah.
And I think they fed chicken with the white corn.
Yeah, the chicken mostly the whites and white corn and other things they mix. Sometimes they ground some small fish. Those small fish mix with the corns.
Uh-huh. And then egg yolk turns out to be white. And in Japan, did you eat egg?
Yes, I'm eating egg.
Okay, then what's the color of the yolk?
It's yellow because it is yellow.
Yeah, yellow and orange, you know.
Yeah, because traditional, even the local chicken we have has a yellow yolk.
Yeah,
The one which hatch, but the one which is from the market, the one they produce as a layer, they don't have the yellow yolk because they cannot hatch. Yeah.
And which is more expensive, yellow yolk or white yolk egg?
It is the yellow one because it is the local one. It's a bit expensive, but the one which is white, not expensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that the white yolk egg is more expensive than the yellow one.
No.
Oh, really? Not, I see. So they provided me with the cheap eggs.
Yeah, because the hotel people also want to make profit. They have to buy cheap things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then let's go to the next slide. So now, how about the production? Okay, we just did the prices. Okay, and the price mechanism and stuff. Then this is production. Well, by the way, again, I want you to look at the data of in our homepage. And do you still have this page?
Yeah, it is the email. I have it.
Okay, then please open this page, and then I want to show you. Let me see. 新しい、共有の提唱はすみませんが。
はい、提出されました。
画面の共有、OK。
OK、画面の共有です。
これでいい。wait a minute. No, not this one. Excuse me. The これなんだよな。Do you see this this data?
Yeah.
This, okay. And let me see. Okay. So do you see this? This World Food Statistics and Graphics.
Yeah.
Okay. Does it show you? Does show it on the screen?
Yes, this is on the screen.
Okay. So now here, yesterday we look at this, right?
Yes.
So today, World Food Statistics and Graphics. Let's look at this one. Let's click this, okay? In your computer, can you do this? In your computer?
I'm using tablet, so I'm not able to do, but I will be able to do it. Sure.
Okay.
Computer. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then we have rice, wheat, corn, and everything. Which one are you interested in among these crops? Huh? Just say.
Rice. Talk about rice.
Okay, rice. Right then. Now here shows the world situation, world total. And this is the area harvested, and the area harvested this side, and then green one is yield, okay? So yield from 1960 has been increasing to the 3 metric ton per hectare. Okay, in the case of area, it was 120 million back in 1960, and then nowadays a little bit above 160 million. Yeah, this kind of change. And then consumption and the production, it goes like this. Okay, it goes like this. And right now, we have just about 500 million tons of rice total in the world. Okay. And similar to so as the consumption. Okay. If you click wheat here, then we're looking at the production and consumption, total production and consumption, right? So if you click wheat, then this is a wheat situation in the world. The wheat is a little bit over 700,000 metric ton, the total production and consumption over here nowadays. Okay? This data originally coming from the USDA PSD online. And this is the April data. And the May data is coming soon. Yeah, May data this month, it's coming soon. And this is up to 2019, 18. And the May data includes this year, 2019. Okay. Then here we have wheat. Then, if you go down, then select country. Here, select country. Okay. If you select country, then we have this kind of countries, and they tell me which country are you interested in to look at the country situation. Whatever. Just out of your head, just tell me.
Okay. We look for Uganda.
Uganda, okay. Uganda is Africa.
Yes.
Uganda is, oh wait.
It's down somewhere.
Uganda.
This,
Wait a minute.
it is just in
Africa.
Here.
Here, Uganda. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. In this black letter country, we don't have data. Okay. We have Tanzania and Angola. We have.
We look for Sudan.
Sudan.
Yeah, it is after Tanzania.
After Tanzania. Yeah, here. Okay. Yes. Then Sudan's wheat is coming like that. Wheat production and consumption. So this difference is for imports.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can take a look at the here, total exports and then imports. Okay, this is Sudan's. So imports is, really increasing recently. Exports almost nothing. Exports this side, imports this side, and this green one is imports. And what else? What else? So which country do you want to say? One more.
Kenya.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down one.
Down there. Kenya. Yeah, here. Kenya. Okay. Okay, yeah. Their imports are also increasing. Wow. That's quite interesting. Okay. So we have data for Kenya, for example. Yeah, it says Kenya here, right? Area harvested and yields and the production consumption and consumption for food and others. This is for wheat, so sometimes for food and others too. And export, import, and stock, and the self-sufficiency rate, population, and per capita total consumption, all those things. Okay, so maybe you are studying economics, so you want the numbers here. If you click here, then numbers come out like this. Okay, all of the numbers from 1960 all the way to 2018. Okay,
Yeah.
later this month, 2019 is coming. This is 2019's estimate. But so if you take a highlight like this, oops, well, here, like this, and then Control C, then you can make a
Copy.
take copy to the in Excel.
Okay.
You know how. So I'll just stop here.
Yeah.
So please utilize this one, whenever you want to. So you have this kind of crop data, and then also you have price data, international price data in the other section on this website. So I really want you to familiar to this one. Okay.
All right.
Now back to the slide. Any question, by the way, on this one? We're spending lots of money to maintain this page. Lots of money and lots of.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes, please.
Ito-san mentioned about the price transmission among the African countries. That might be one of our issues to conduct research and end up with some publication to the journal. But so looking at the past several years, since you have so many foreign students, very highly qualified, very ambitious student, particularly you have this student from China, and then you might have already published some papers regarding the price transmission among the countries in Africa. If you don't, so we would just want to know whether you didn't have you have already published or not.
Their papers are published, Some by the some Chinese students, and also by Afghanistan students. Yes. So the Najibra was from Afghanistan, and he did some analysis. And Xu Jin from China, she did some too. So yeah, if you take a look at those things, you know, it might be of interest to you. But do you want me to send some information about their publications? I can send.
Yeah, I personally, I myself have already information.
Okay. So yeah, transmission is a quite interesting study. Yeah. Okay. For this data per se, no questions so far.
Very attractive.
Okay. And then back to the slides. This one, right? Okay. So for the production, supply side, they I want you to pay attention to this one. This slides. This is from 1961 all the way to 2003 up here, and actually this is the population. You know, population is growing continuously, and food, including soybeans, and the continuously was growing. But in here, you know, in the case of wheat, it is hitting the highest, you know, in the history. In 1990, then it came down like this, right? And then it lasted for 7 years, and then finally they got the new record, you know, but not much in comparison to this. And again, coming down. And in the case of corn, it became just flat. Yeah? And in the case of rice, it was very high in 1999, but it's coming down. You know, what do you think? This kind of things, why it is taking place like this?
Sometimes the failure of the crops also contribute when crop fail.
Crop fail, okay.
And also the competition, because they compete, the farmers have to select which one bring a lot of income for them. So the competition among the crops.
I see. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Let's look at the afterwards. You know, it came out like this. In the case of corn, it is now the just a minute. This side only population. In the case of corn, it is more than a billion tons nowadays. Okay, and the wheat increased this much, and then rice increasing this much too. You know, afterwards, and the soybeans, that's really fast. So in this period, what really happened was the prices. And during this period, the prices are very small, very low. And do you remember the highest price, you know, and because of the oil prices so high, that is 2008, you know.
Yes.
And afterwards, it is remaining at the high level. So the production is way up, right? So the the farmers in the world are getting quite a big impact from the market prices. So this is definitely showing clearly. Okay. So that's the situation. And then what can we tell from here is what we really need to get into. Well, it's just about 2 o'clock. So let's take a 10 minutes break because we did the 10 minutes more yesterday. So,
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Then we'll come back 10 minutes after 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.